Hello everyone, how's it going? Let's see if this clicker actually works. Not After Effects, that's just PowerPoint and YouTube. Right. So basically I'm a sound designer at Sony Computer Entertainment and I work for Guerrilla Cambridge. Within Sony there's a group called CSG, which is basically a group of sort of audio designers, visual effects guys and music people, and we get outsourced to Sony-owned companies. And one of the companies that we work for is Guerrilla Cambridge, which is where I'm based, and I'm basically with the Guerrilla development team. I'm going to basically talk to you about concept, implementation, design techniques, and the general process of working for a big game studio. So just in case you didn't really know what a sound designer does, but I'm sure you do, but I make sound effects and any required audio for PlayStation games. So just in case you didn't really know, Guerrilla, based in Amsterdam, has primarily created the Killzone franchise. Have any of you played Killzone before? Yeah? Just one, two? There's another one. Right, good. Okay, and at Guerrilla Cambridge, we have developed Killzone Mercenary from scratch on the PS Vita, and we did some support for Killzone Shadowfall on the PS4. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is sort of weight of objects. And one of the jobs that I got was two particularly heavy vehicles. One is the exoskeleton, which is a vehicle, and the Helgen heavy character. It's Boris, the guy who's with you. He's a huge Helgen sort of robot. He's your bodyguard. And I created the footsteps for Boris and the footsteps for the Exo. And again, designed very, very much the same way as you're doing with the environmental sounds, and you're creating different variations of it because you don't want it to sound exactly the same. So created in Cubase different sort of sounds for it. Again, put it in the same way in Scream, same sort of particular thing. This time I created the heavy step and also sort of environment sounds with the steps, like concrete sort of smashing and stuff like that. Play some sort of sound bites. So here are the variations that I made, and you'll see why I kind of blended them together. So that's all the variations that Boris has. And so if you put him in Scream and tell the game engine that whenever Boris puts his foot down, you play one of those sounds, it plays it all differently. So it gives you more of a creative freedom. It's the same with the Exo, but with the Exo, I wanted to play child sounds underneath it, which is hydraulics, because the Exo has a very mechanical way of walking. So when it's stepping, it's also playing a hydraulic sound. Play all these examples as well. These did implement exactly the same way. So you'll hear Boris's movements in this.
We're clear. Justice, you okay?
Very distant, but it still gives you the idea that he's quite a heavy guy.
Why are they doing this?
So it works quite well with camera shakes as well. And with the Exo, again, very similar sort of thing. Hear the layering in the footsteps, yeah? Okay, so that's quite a cool idea of sort of layering up sounds and having some kind of creative variation with something as mundane as footsteps. The next thing I wanted to talk about was something that actually made Killzone Mercenary sort of sound, as we called it, which is the in-game UI and HUD sounds. I got given the job, which I was quite lucky to get this job of designing all the button presses and all the on-screen commands and everything, all the swipe HUD messages, all the main button presses. And the way I did that was kind of like, I had complete creative freedom, which is great, one thing you have to understand with sounds that are going to be used quite regularly is that they're all going to be subjective. Some people are going to hate them, some people are going to love them. So the best way for me to get across that is to make sounds that are so subtle that they're kind of unnoticeable, but are recognizable as well, if you know what I mean. They're kind of easy on the ears, but not annoying. So basically, I took some sort of computer sci-fi sounding audio from the sound library and cut them into small sort of segments, you know, find some kind of bleep or some sort of telemetry sort of sound, and I'd take that tiny little thing using sort of granular synthesis, taking tiny little segments out of it, and that seemed to kind of work. Layering up again, taking ages and taking my time on something that's so small and but it's such a big job because people are going to use it all the time. The one thing about Mercenary is that you've got the main character has this Vanguard system on their arm, which is basically your Vita. So it's a broken piece of equipment. It's quite the screen is damaged slightly, and the way I had to design it was so these 3D sounds had to emit from the Vita as if it's your own Vanguard system. And emit from your wrist really. The shop sort of sounds again designed basically with some kind of idea of familiarity. So with so when you're in the shop and you re-equip something, then I wanted to design that sound from similar to reloading a gun, or if you buy a particular weapon, it needed to sound something to me like a cash register. I'll show you those sort of examples now. So I mean, you know, very, very, very small sounds, but used quite regularly in the game. That's one of the purchase sounds. This is the next one. Two different varieties. The reason why I included those two is because when you are designing things like this, as I did say, they're quite subjective. You do have to work with a game director with it, which is great because our game director, Piers Jackson, is a fantastic guy to work with. When I was asking him for advice, rather than my lead, he would actually give me he'd give me some straightforward answers. Like, I like it, I don't like it, this is why I like it, this is why I don't like it, which is great. It's very rare to kind of find that in the games industry, apparently, so it's quite cool. The re-equip sound, you see what I mean about the reloading, the menu locks, and the swipes. Again, they sound quite cool, but it's supposed to emulate a kind of broken device, really. I mean, making UI sounds and HUD sounds is great. And it's, you know, you've got quite a lot of creative freedom, but I defy anyone in the whole games industry or any game audio who doesn't like working on weapons, because that's the best thing you can ever do, the best job ever, because especially if you're designing weapons that don't exist. And in Killzone, that's exactly what happens. None of these weapons exist, really, when you think about it, and if they did, then we'd have a lot of trouble. So with the first one was the VC9, which is the missile launcher. And basically, at the time, it didn't really have much of anything going for it. It was a bit poor. It was a bit sort of boring, a bit mundane. So I decided that I wanted to create a huge tail for when the missile sort of left, when it was fired, and when it left the actual weapon. So I wanted to put an F-15 jet sound as the tail, and I just got this F-15 jet sound. That was it. That was my only asset, and I just pumped it with so much reverb because I wanted to put reverb onto the actual sound asset as well as taking in the environment reverb. Because, and when I play you the clip, you'll hear what I mean. It has to really emphasize of the movement of it actually going away from you rather than the actual firing sound or the sound that it makes when it's exploding, when it hits its target. So this is the VC9, and this is the first weapon I did. See, it's pretty huge, but you'll hear the tail, and I think you'll like it. More emphasis on the tail and the actual firing rather than the actual impact that the gun makes. That's quite an interesting thing to do. It's quite a good design technique, especially when you're really studying a particular weapon. So, I mean, I had quite a lot of guidance with that particular weapon, but the VC-39, which is possibly the most important gun in the game because it's the gun that the boss really has. all these clips are kind of really going to ruin the game for you. I'm so sorry about that, but I had to show you these things. So, I mean, with the VC39, it's an expensive gun to buy. It's not many people have it until quite towards the end. But the boss has it, and it's an important weapon. It's featured quite heavily towards the end of the game. One of the elements that it has 2 elements. The first one is that it's got quite large piercing fire sounds and a variation of fires. So again, same as the 3D spot effects, you create different variations of the firing, which offset over each other in different pitches. Again, in the sound bank, done exactly the same way. But the other element is the charge up. This gun kind of charges up for a couple of seconds before it's fired. And the way I did this was, so I wanted to emulate the sound of a kind of camera flash that's charging up. So I took the sound of that and then decided that the way I'm going to implement it was using this crossfader tool. So crossfader is basically a tool it's a little bit like Maximus P. This is it here. So you've got 2 graphs here, basically. So you're in the screen one, you're doing the high and low pitches, so +10 and -10. So they pitch from quite low to quite high. And then in the crossfader here, you've got 3 different wave assets. One is the high frequency, low frequency, and mid range. And those 3, the sound of this is actually just one monotonic sort of tone of this camera sort of thing. So it doesn't actually charge up until it gets into this. You do all the designing in this tool. So that's why this one is the volume level, so it goes slightly down, decreases in volume, and this one where it peaks up towards the end. And it's a really interesting tool because you can do it live in game and design it as you're sort of playing around with the graphs. Some people in the studio have really sensitive ears, and I made it very, very, very high pitched because it sounded cool. Some loved it, some hated it. And what actually went into the game was a lot more high pitched than this, what I'll show you. So I pitched it down quite a bit, but it still gives the kind of the same sort of effect. So the boss has got the gun. The aim is the blue sort of laser light that's coming through. Hear the charge?
Must force him to land. Take him on, man to man.
You roll a conscience or someone cuts you a deal.
I mean, the gun sound has to be really, really intimidating because, you know, you're trying to beat this guy who's got this amazing gun. It has to be really sort of in your face. So that was one of the weapons I did. The same process was with the tank fire in the first level. Again, using crossfader, same sort of tool, same sort of premise. It's not really a gun, it's more of a vehicle, so the charge sounds a lot lower, but you get the same sort of effect. So that's the same, 3 layers, high frequency, low frequency, mid-range. It's all the same sort of thing, just a different asset, a different sort of wave asset that I used for that particular thing. So another job that I have as a sound designer, it's quite varied as when you're a sound designer in a games company, because anything to do with audio, you get given that job as well. And in the game, we've got a lot of voiceovers and a lot of people, like players, interacting with each other. So we have to do placeholder voiceover sessions. Placeholder because the main actors don't actually do it in-house. They do it in various studios in London. But with the placeholder, they get an idea of how it's supposed to be said. So from all the experience that I had recording bands and stuff, it was a breeze. It was fantastic. It was great to be in the studio and do something else as well. So you know, we had, what was really cool, we were lucky enough to have one of our artists was this American dude, and he was great at getting into character, and I tried to use him every time. So we'd go down to the studio, and I'd give him the script of that particular scene or whatever we want to record. I recorded it all in Pro Tools, just very placeholder, so it's not too much into it. And then I'd have usually a producer or a senior producer directing them on emotion and the way things are said and stuff. And we did everything from your player character to Helgen's and stuff like that. It was a pretty fun thing to do. Yeah, very cool sort of session, and we do it quite a lot in the process of this game, even towards the tail end as well, because it takes 2 minutes to record the actual actor, but it takes quite a while to get the emotion together when you're recording placeholder VO. That was pretty cool. So cutscenes, I'm sure you're all familiar with all that. It's very much the same as designing to like a clip or like a movie clip as you would do, I'm sure, in your classes. So very much the same sort of thing. You load up your video that you get from the animation. Again, you work quite closely with animation. So one of the things I wanted to tell you is that with play blasts and first, second, and third pass of any particular cutscenes, you get the new video every time. So what you have to do is you have to be prepared for that and be patient with everyone, because they're changing the way gameplay works every single day, and it can get quite annoying. But when you've set it out, your project like this, you can just drag your new video in, and then you're fine. You just have to realign certain things. It's grouped, color grouped again, very much like how some people record bands or producers record bands, because to sort of, I don't know, be able to distinguish what certain elements of the cutscene is. Like in this particular one, sort of water lapping, the ambience, Foley, that sort of stuff. It's all in the same project. So that's the MO3 intro, and we've got the outro there as well. This is part way through it, so I'm not finished color coding that one, but you can see the Foley at the bottom there. And yeah, cutscenes into Scream are very, very simple. Because they're quite big sized assets, like the ambiences, they're like 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 minutes. So we convert them again to 18.9s. So it's much smaller and even a little bit more reliable, I think. So we put them back into Scream, set the priority straight, set your volume levels, and you can do that all in game as well. So what I'll show you these. I'll play you some cutscenes now, if that's cool. So the first one we looked at was the MO3 intro. And yeah, it's the same sort of a design into video clips. So you're allowed to, you have the scope to kind of embellish the sound, play around with panning, and really work with sort of stereo sounds and kind of user experience and stuff. Much like you do in trailers, but we'll go on to that later on.
I used to come here as a kid, to Diordum. Had an uncle work the docks. Look at the place now. Hick sons of bitches. Nice and easy, man. Nice and easy. They got snipers and guards all over it.
You can tell when the cutscene finishes as well. It's there. And it blends in quite well into the ambience. So you take into account what the ambience that particular area is doing, and you merge that into your cutscene. Give it kind of like a bookend, really. So that's that one. The MO3 outro. There's a lot of Foley in this, and what I did with this one, to emphasize what's actually happening, which I integrated quite a lot of music into this as well. Basically, you're trying to escape from this ship that's being destroyed, and it's going to blow up in your face if you don't get off. So, so yeah. Cutscene starts. One thing with that one is that working with filters quite a bit was great, because when you jump off the ship and you land in the sea, like this wash of of this sort of heavy filter comes through and then comes back out when you emerge, and you hear this ship sort of metal ronks and the explosions going off. Really quite effective, but the only way you can really do that is in cutscenes, which is really cool. So it gives you that sort of creative freedom to sort of play around a little bit, and without the restrictions of in-game sequences. Cutscene that I did was the MOA outro. And again, this gives you the example of various panning that I used, especially with missiles being sort of launched towards you.
The bridge is down! Go! Get across! Get to the tanks! Go! Go!
So even with a game like Killzone Mercenary on the Vita, you can still be really creative and innovative with designing techniques like panning and things like that, and sort of playing around with stereo signals. Another thing that we do is we work quite closely with marketing and create trailers for the game. So trailers really kind of enhance the impact and the player experience, and they're supposed to embellish the action shots to basically sell the game. So one of the things that I was taught when we were just sort of doing some trailers, one of the things was that all the audio assets are sort of sequential to kind of find the right place in the trailer. So again, you're designing to a movie clip. And one of the particular techniques that I want to show you is when any kind of impact or stab, in this case, I basically designed a heavily reverse reverberated whoosh sort of sound, which I put before the impact. And it really, really emphasizes the kind of the impacts that you'll hear. I'll show you that kind of thing, what I mean now. It's quite a cool technique. Now this trailer has not been mixed purposely because I wanted to up the level of the sound effects. And the music and the VO is quite low, but you'll be able to hear what I mean when it turns into emphasizing all the sort of aspects of it. It's not really supposed to sound like what it's going to sound like in the game. That's the whole point. So.
For the ride, for the journey, for the fight. Against men, against machines. Buy guns. Buy the best. Fight clean. Fight dirty. With stealth. With force. Choose sides. Choose tactics. For the bonus, for the perks, for the money. War is our business.
Those kind of sign-off sounds at the end of it is really important as well. It gives you that sort of another emphasis for people to remember the name of the game. What I'd like to do, I don't know, I think as a sound designer, because I've been working on first-person shooters since I started, which isn't that long ago, I would like to work on different games. There's kind of three sort of elements to game audio. There's the first-person shooter, there's the driving game, and then there's the sort of UI family game. And those three, there's three huge different approaches to sound design. So to boost my show reel, just like you guys, is sort of like, I'd like to work on different games every time. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that. But yeah, every sound designer has the desire to do that. Yeah, it's all free headphones. All free headphones, yeah. So just to basically, just so you get even more of a realistic idea. Yeah, they're good headphones, you know, but they're, you know, we do a lot of the mixing in our studio, you know, with our sort of 5.1 Genelecs, which is great, but you know, you can't design into something that it's not even going to be played on. What's really cool is that I go and consult the people who I work with. So if I am struggling on something, then I'll speak to the other sound designer or my audio lead, and they'll give me some pointers, which I already know, but it's just someone telling you and giving you some kind of a voice. It's like a reminder, yeah, exactly. Also, I spend a lot of the time trawling the internet for gameplay walkthroughs, trying to find something that I can do a sound alike to, or going to our games library and playing some games that are similar to the ones that we've got, and doing my own take on there, see how their approach is. That's quite cool. You can do, but I haven't done.
Because we are constantly told here to get our own library.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh definitely, yeah. Because mainly because I don't want to use any of my own sounds in Sony games. but then if there's something that I've recorded which I really like, and I think I've done, which I'm doing at the moment actually, going out to do some field recordings, then I will bring them into work, and I can use them in games. Actually, my boss does encourage that. So yeah. So it is absolutely, yeah, definitely. It's very important to go out doing field recording. When I was doing the freelance stuff before I started at Sony, for the feature film, I recorded everything myself. I went out because I was quite into it, you know. As I'm sure you guys, when you guys have your own projects, you go out and do your own recordings and stuff. And the first assignment I did on my degree, sound design assignment at my degree, was to score a Terminator 2 clip, which is like 30 seconds. And it's the bit, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's where the robots are kind of being built and stuff, so it's all very mechanical. I ran home and, you know, recorded this like sort of electronic sharpener and like fried some bacon and close mic that, and you know, and sort of drill sort of sounds, just so I could have my own little library, and I used all that. I didn't use anything I found on like Freesound or whatever, because it's more sort of precious. It's more your own work, you know.